Did you come anywhere near the raids on the oil tanks or that big radar dish in
No,
Mozambique?
no, that was on escapers. That dropper spear, I think it's called a
Troposphere. Yeah,
dropper spear.
yeah,
No, that was B Squadron. That was on escapers.
right.
So that was all, like I said, C, we were mostly Zambia. So that was B. I think Andre was in B Squadron, if I'm not mistaken. And the Bara one was those select guys, the Clubbies gang who did that one.
Okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
we've had Andre give us 2 or possibly 3 talks, if I remember right.
Yeah. No, I've
Fascinating.
listened to one or two of Andre's ones. But Andre's also, he's got his details there. I've never read his book though, but the only one I've read is Daryl Watt's book.
Yes, yes. Fascinating.
Yeah. No, look, he was our top operator.
And the thing that struck me about Daryl is that he's quite a chunky fellow. Most of the operatives I've spoken to have been, apart from, well, sort of skinny, like yourself.
Well, we were all skinny. I mean, you can see in those pics that I sent you, and you can look. Even that US Army Ranger captain that I'm in comms with, he's also an attack diver. He's got everything in common. So, and they love and respect the Rhodesian SAS so much, it's embarrassing. It really is. And we were speaking about that one, and I sent him pictures. There's pictures, I think, Pete LaRue and PJ Smith in a klepper at Kariba. They look like 14-year-old schoolboys with skinny little arms.
Yeah, yeah.
No, but the strength is inside, eh?
Yes, yes.
Oh yeah, no, tell you what, no, you look at the movies, they're all these bodybuilders. No, rubbish, man. Rubbish.
Yeah.
I mean, the big guys on that past selection, they had it hard. And the instructors would also pick on them like they picked on officers. They made it harder for officers. But like on Mike West, he sparred in the 70s with Kali Knutse and Harry Kutsia. No one's going to take on Mike. And there were other guys. I think he's dead now. Another officer. Oh, crikey. There's a picture of them all standing at Grand Reef. There's Mike West, Daryl Watt. Mike is holding a bow, a traditional bow. His name's on zip my tongue. But he also another big guy. But there weren't many. That was the exception. Most of us, we were good old Rhodesian, skinny, raised on Sadza.
Yeah. When I've looked at pictures of Daryl Watt, he seems quite stocky, yet I believe he's...
Yeah, no, he was very stocky, but hey, his temperament, you didn't even challenge him.
Yeah.
We were all scared of Daryl. No, he was not approachable.
No. And his bush skills and the ability to interpret the enemy's moves were renowned, I believe.
Yeah. No, look, Tony, we used to even joke about it. My very first op, that snatch at Kanyemba, we were after that battalion commander from Kavala Manjo, which we didn't get. But Daryl was in charge of us there. And I tell you what, that he was spot on. You just followed him. He was spot on. And we used to joke. I even told Daryl about a year ago, I said, the guys used to say, if you're unlucky enough to be in Daryl Watt's stick, pack your tackies. Because when he picks up spoor, he breaks into like a bushman trot. And it's tick, 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 and off he goes.
Oh, no.
So, no, we used to joke and say, hey, pack your bartered tackies, boy, because you take off your boots, put on your tackies, because you're going to be moving fast. That's the way we used to talk about Daryl.
I couldn't stand those tackies. They used to give me blisters.
Oh, no, I think we've all got ruined feet from Rhodesian shoes, barter shoes.
Yeah. I know it wasn't operationally feasible to use them, but the old Phillies were wonderful shoes, really, weren't they?
Well, I've still got a pair, but I've got inflamed Achilles tendons for the last 15, 20 years. And I don't know if it's from those things.
Yeah.
So I had to wear insteps and, for my feet, for the instep, I must get these molds, and they cost a fortune now. But I've always blamed them. But that very first op jump of mine, I did that RLI 5 Force at Matoka. I couldn't believe those guys were jumping in shorts and fellies, no socks, parachuting in fellies. But very soon after that, it was banned. You had to wear long trousers, long sleeves.
Yeah.
But no, it was those can't follow me boots were also, I think I mentioned that they were horrible.
Yeah,
they were black and they just attracted heat.
Dreadful. And sweat telling them,
yeah.
I mean, our camouflage was really, really brilliant, because on the Zambezi shoreline once, about 8 or 10 guys from our platoon started to walk off down the river, they had shorts, so you could see
Yeah.
their white legs. But it actually looked like legs were walking because you couldn't
Yeah.
see the top half of their body against the
No,
trees.
you must see those rangers, the Americans, what they think about camouflage. They are just so obsessed with it. They love our stuff.
Yeah.
And look, even Zach, who's the captain, he told me a year ago. He said the U.S. Army Rangers, that's the oldest American Special Force unit. It was raised and named in World War II. In fact, the guy that named it is the guy that named the Special Air Service, the same guy.
All right.
And he named three units. One was the Special Air Service. The other one was U.S. Army Rangers. And I think the Royal Marine Commandos. I'm not too sure about the third one. But he showed me and he sent me pictures. The Rangers used to have a black beret.
Yeah.
They've now changed it to the sand color beret of the SAS.
That's incredible.
In the US Army Rangers. So no, the stuff they do was telling me I was actually cringing with them with embarrassment. He couldn't believe how we used to operate and the odds we used to go up against with basically handheld weapons.
Yeah, yeah. Now, our camouflage, if I've got this right, somebody might correct me. It was developed by a woman at David Whitehead's, scratching around on a piece of paper and a bit of paint. And
Wow.
I believe it's
phenomenal.
I believe it's either the third or fourth most effective camo in the world, but I would go as far as saying it's the best, in my opinion.
Yeah. Well, I think in its day, it was the best. Now, if you look at this American stuff with that geometric little blocks, I mean, that is so effective.
Yeah.
Wow.
Incredible.
But it's all relative. But in its day, I think it had to be. It was so effective.
Yeah, it was brilliant. Absolutely brilliant.
But Tony, before we end, I just got something here just to add. That Op Chichery.
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
About 10 years after the war ended, we were at a association reunion in Calvert Removals in Joburg.
Yeah.
And Peter Walls was there. So the French guy who came from RLI, Jean-Michel Caffin, and myself, we were both in recce. We were good mates. Jean and I pigeonholed him and we plied him with white wine and we spoke to him. And we said to him first thing, why didn't the coup, what was the op on election day?
I think it was courts or something.
Yeah. Why didn't that go ahead? And he just said, we'd plied him with wine and his tongue was getting loose. And he said our targets were all empty.
Really?
They knew all our plans. And then he went on to telling us about Lancaster House, how Maggie Thatcher had nominated who would be his representatives military-wise, intelligence-wise. And he stood up to his full height. He wasn't the tall man, and he demanded that he choose his own. And Maggie played him. He says she played him, and he says, I choose my director of the CIO, Ken Flower. And in retrospect, he says she played him. How she kept a straight face, he doesn't know, but he was their man, according to Walls. So we were talking, and we went on a bit about all these things, but he said basically our targets were empty. And then he said to me, he says, the most successful op of the SAS during the war was Op Chichery. So I said, why? That was an arms dump. We blew up in Lusaka. I said, well, what about Chimoyo, Tembui, Makushi? He says, our aims and objectives on Op Chichery were achieved 100%. I said, oh, okay. He says, look at your orders. I mean, what's your aim and objective? He says that was achieved 100%, and no other op did we ever achieve 100%. And he said the reason why that had happened, remember, this is 5 days op carpet.
Yeah.
Op Bastille, when they drove in, they were warned. So don't. And they also didn't ambush our guys, because if they had, they would have confirmed the presence of a mole. Okay, so they let us come in, shoot off, and blow up. And Op carpet, where we flew in, the and Moscow weren't there, but that was just a possibility. Okay. When we did Op Chichery, he says he did not inform Ian Smith or Comops until we were over Zambian airspace. So we flew out from Boomy Hills over the lake, and it's not very wide there. And we flew up towards Lusaka. Only when we were halfway there did he inform Ian Smith and Comops of the raid. So they didn't have time to actually warn them. And that was according to Peter Walls, that he told myself and Aljan Caffin. And Aljan is still a very switched on guy. He's in Florida. He can back it up. It's and I said, wow, Okay, it never occurred to me. We achieved 100% of our objective there.
Yeah, I think that definitely when the moles were cut out, it became very much more successful.
Well, they were never cut out, even up to the election day. You know, Graham's gang and that, they were wandering around, driving around Mablerain, all those Lani areas, checking on the safe houses that we knew that Mugabe had. I led 1 or 2 ops into the flays west of Mablerain at night. You know, you had those flays, so that very thick, 10-foot high elephant
Yeah.
grass, and there were all these little paths going through it.
Mm.
So we laid ambushes there on a couple of occasions, but they were never sprung because
Mm.
we knew they were coming in there. Remember Boss Lilford out towards the west there?
Yeah.
You know, they all suspected him. He backed both sides.
Oh.
So they were coming in from the west past Mount Hampden and coming in through those flays into Mablerain. But none of those of my ambushes were sprung. The guys were in civvies. They were driving around checking on Mugabe's houses in what's the area north of Mount Pleasant School?
Mount Pleasant, would it be Gun Hill or Mablerain or somewhere around there?
Mablerain's west.
West,
anyway,
yeah.
I forget. I've been away for so long now.
Me too, yeah.
But I mean, we knew which his safe houses were and everything, and the guys were driving past in civvies and they were filming them. But Wall said they knew all our plans. And the audiovisual center, we were supposed to attack on op courts that day. That sort of semicircle shaped audiovisual center.
Yeah.
I've still got the aerial photograph, the big aerial photo, and we've even got tanks. Those T-54 tanks are marked on the top right-hand side. We had rebel K cars, rebel fighter pilots, everything ready. And HR came and went, and they just drove past screaming, giving their Jongwe signs, and it never happened.
Oh.
But according to Walls, he said they knew all our plans. Doesn't surprise me.
Oh, tragic, eh? Oh,
Yeah.
how infuriating.
Well, I even know South Africans here in the Paras, they were all about ready to jump into the assembly points down in the southern part of Rhodesia.
Yeah, I've just interviewed one of them who was on standby for that. Good Lord. Wow.
So, and that was that's one of the worst feelings that I've ever had. The one was when Captain Pierce died, and then the other one was election day. You just can't put it into words. I'm not gifted enough.
I don't know if you know this, but I've mentioned I've done a couple of talks myself. When I left the army, I became an instructor in Part 2 at Morris Depot. And when the elections happened, all these dignitaries came to the country. I was attached to Mrs. Gandhi as her the officer in between her guys and the Rhodesian government, the go-between liaison officer. And so I was with her the night that we trooped into the stadium, Rafaro Stadium, when it wasn't the Rhodesian flag that came down, it was the British flag. It's like we never existed. And then
it wasn't even the Zimbabwe Rhodesia flag.
No, it was just the British flag because we'd been recolonized when Soames came, basically. And the Zimbabwean flag went up, and it was a very, very emotional evening for me. When the RAR detachment came in, they were spectacular, shiny boots, and then Zipra were not too bad. When Sandler came in, they looked like a drunk millipede.
Yeah.
And I wasn't far away from Prince Charles and all of those guys up on the dais, and I was in and out all the hotels with all of them. I had 3 guys under my command, and I often wondered if I'd plugged old Bobby, but I would have been shot instantly. So, yeah, but it was just a shocking way.
At that time, did you come across a guy by the name of East Colin?
Oh, I couldn't remember. It's 50 years ago nearly.
We can have a chat about what he said to me about Josh and the Viscounts, but I don't know if you're recording still. But
yeah, we are.
You can edit it out. I suppose you can edit it.
Do we need to? I mean, this is all fascinating stuff.
I had a chat to him last year. He's in also Florida in the States.
Right.
And he said after 80, he was the bodyguard for Joshua in Goma.
Wow.
And he said he got to know him very well. He says the guy was switched on. You know, wasn't like our propaganda portrayed him as. He says the guy was clever. And one day, he doesn't know how the subject came up, but he said to him, "Why did you shoot the Viscounts down?" And he says, he didn't answer straight away, but he looked at him and he just said in a very calm voice, he says, "We didn't." So he was quite perturbed because, we'd been fed the storyline.
Mm-hmm.
And then it turns out, he says as well, we didn't know it, but Smith had been flying secretly to Lusaka to have meetings with Josh. Okay. And Zanla had found out about it. And there's a theory. It's just a theory that they actually sent in cadres to actually commit those atrocities, just to scupper those talks. Because after the Viscount was shot down, they say that's when we attacked. Was it Op Carpet as revenge? I doubt it, because that would have been planned long before that. But he said, and then he says about 4 months later, another high-ranking, I don't know if it was Dabengwa, said to him the same thing. He says, we didn't shoot the Viscounts down.
And yet he never denied it publicly, even laughed on the radio that
yeah, but that's you pandering to the masses like Julius Malema.
I guess, yeah. Wow, that's fascinating.
Malema will rabble rouse and that, but businessmen, investors have met him. They said, the guy's switched on. He's not stupid. And they said, why do you say that? He says, that's for the masses. And Josh was doing the same thing.
Good Lord, eh?
Because if you read Squadron Leader Peter Peterbauer's book, Winds of Destruction, excellent book.
I've read it, yeah, excellent.
When I read that part about Tongara in London meeting with him, because he always deferred to the Air Force, even the Zandler people deferred to him, but he wasn't. I think General Barnard was the top guy. Squadron Leader Peter Bauer, because they respected and feared the Air Force, and they said that the SAS were Air Force troops because we were always jumping out of their planes. But Peter Bauer, did you read the part when he says he took Tongara, came up with his plans, and he says, look, if Mugabe keeps on holding up the talks, because Mugabe was at the airport about to fly back, and Samora Machel warned him. He says, if you do not go back, you will take your Zanla out of Mozambique. So he forced him back. But when that was going on, Tongara met with Zipra and the Rhodesians. Unfortunately, he had that snake, that Tungamirai, with him. And Josiah Tungamirai, also a nyoka. And he said to the Rhodesians, right, if Mugabe carries on with that, we will take over. We will stop the war. And he said, Peter Bauer wrote, he says, we will amalgamate our forces over a 5-year period. And geez, when I read that, I actually got upset. The fact that we tried so many times to kill him and Nongo and all of them, but we didn't realize that he was quite a statesman, a very forward-looking statesman.
Yeah, and they knocked him off in the end themselves, didn't they?
Yeah, they took him out straight after that in Maputo. Peter Bauer says he even names the East German assassin that they flew in, and he names the 3 ministers that were at the airport that paid him. He even names them in his book. So he actually names those ZANU-PF ministers.
He was
a vehicle assassin.
Yeah,
he specialized in vehicle accidents, vehicle assassinations.
Which they then used on the MDC leader, the same tactic.
They did it. Remember during the 80s and 90s, then ZNA trucks had to drive with their headlights on. Because so many of the upcoming black intelligentsia were being wiped out. They were a threat to Bob. They weren't part of the Chimurenga, but they were businessmen, and they were shouting against Bob. And one by one, they all got squashed by army trucks.
I don't mean to laugh, but
yeah,
you think you'd find an easier way of killing somebody, eh?
Yeah, well, same old story. Just remember, we're using our way of thinking, and attributing our way of thinking to their way of thinking. That's our failing.
My own personal feeling, and I'll probably get shot for saying this, that I don't believe Zander or Zipra shot those Viscounts down. I think it's from the UK.
I did hear one theory that there were explosives placed in the engine compartments of those.
I've heard that as well.
Because look, I've always known from that silly book, that Viscount Down book, where he claims they killed Daryl and killed the Zipra, the Strela gang.
Keith, now.
From where that aircraft is shot to where it lands, do you really think that's the same gang, as it were?
No, it could have not been the same.
There's no ways. I mean, that thing will go miles and miles and miles out before it hits the ground.
Absolutely. Yeah. They wouldn't have got there to find the survivors. It was a different gang.
Yeah, and that just happened to be there at the time they perpetrated the atrocities.
I'm actually about to interview a guy that killed that group of Chers. And I don't believe, let's say that plane flew 15, 20 Ks before it crashed.
Yeah.
There's no ways that group could have got there so quickly.
Well, have you read John Padbury's book, The Battle for Urungwe?
No.
Okay, he was a special branch man in Urungwe, and I phoned my best mate in Harare, or Charlie Hand. He was in ground coverage in Rusapi. He hit mines twice. He hit a mine in his Land Rover there.
Yep.
He was in Makoni.
Yeah.
And John Padbury was Makoni and that other area. And I've read his book. Boy, oh boy, what a perfect place for terrorists to hide out. It's just Gomos. It's like Matoka, but bigger.
Mm.
Unbelievable. And I phoned Charlie. I said, what do you think of Padbury? And Charlie said the best operator he ever worked with. He started the Mujiba farm at Rusapi. You know, us in the squadron, we operated externally. We didn't know, we knew what a Mujiba was. We didn't know how they operated, their modus operandi and everything. So they compromised some young Mujibas. So they took them into custody. Otherwise, they would have been killed. And they formed a farm outside Rusapi. And that's, you must read his book. The detail, it's, boy, if you're doing a thesis, you can refer to John's book. He's got so much detail. Because the policemen, unlike us brown jobs, policemen had logs, they had diaries, they had everything, like the Air Force. Everything was recorded. Us brown jobs didn't.
What's the title of the book?
The Battle for Urungwe.
Battle for Urungwe. I must get that.
Yeah. He's in the UK. He's Bristol's, what's that, southwestern provinces, counties?
Yeah, I know what you mean. I live here, but I go blank when I try and think of it.
Yeah, he's down the southwest.
Devon, somewhere around there.
Yeah, he's Devon. He's somewhere around there. He's actually writing another book now. He's writing some thesis on home defense, because it appears the trouble that's brewing in the UK, it could turn into civil conflict.
Definitely.
And so he's actually been advising how to do all these things. No, John, you must get a hold of it, John. I'll send him a message.
Lovely. That would be brilliant.
Because he's actually writing a little piece on that camp attack we did in about September 77, Nyamumba Farm, where we canoed across the Zambezi, and Mo Taylor's canoe was taken by Hippo. He's in comms with a zipper guy who was in the camp when we hit it.
Ish.
So I've given him about a 4-page account of my memory of it, but I've sent it on to a few guys, and they haven't got back to me, because one man's memory is not the whole truth.
No, that's for sure.
You need 4 or 5 guys to corroborate or agree with or completely say bull dust.
Mm.
But I've sent it on to him. So now, John, we're going to have a 3-way Zoom meeting with the zipper guy and myself. And because one of our guys reckoned there was Tanzanian troops there, which I'd never heard of. So this guy can confirm it. And we want to know how did he escape? Because we mamisa them there. I mean, that was very quick and very surgical. So it'll be very interesting to see how he survived.
Fascinating stuff, man. Geez, you can talk for hours on this.
Yeah.
You know, talk about guys, you know, you were external. The people that have gone right up in my estimation and respect are internal affairs. I must apologize 1,000 times. I didn't really.
No, why?
I really didn't have.
I've always believed cooks, bottle washers, boy, the army marches on its stomach. Remember that old adage.
Yes, but if
no one can operate in special forces if you don't have this long line of backup, of support.
Well, these internal affair guys, the way they kept the peace running and cattle being dipped and the economy running was absolutely unbelievable. If you really want to listen to a brilliant episode, you must listen to episode 306.
Okay.
It's brilliant. You'll get an incredible overview of what those internal affairs guys did. It was just amazing.
Yeah.
And that's in Hondi Valley, which is a hellhole.
Okay. Oh no, that's a hot that mate. In fact, my cousin Dave, he joined the squadron right at the end, but he didn't get his colors because he went to varsity. He was at Ruangwi. Now Ruangwi is just north of the Hondi. Hey, they were tired there.
Yeah, this guy,
those internal affairs guys, the risk of landmines was scary.
You got to watch that video. It's unbelievable. I mean, he was actually personally requested by Ian Smith to go in there and sort that place out, and he got all the camps working. You know, the protected camps.
Yeah,
a miraculous story actually.
Yeah, sadly, our war, we had too many old British fuddy-duddy career soldiers.
Yeah.
In HQ, even when they tried to start the SAS, they were up against it in North Africa.
Terrible.
And Rhodesia, we had that same mindset from these old colonial farts with both their feet were still in England.
Yeah.
Look at the commissioner of the police, PK Allen. He was a pom.
Yeah.
all those guys. And I saw a video this morning, one of these Masasa, and there's 3 videos, one on the SAS and one looks like RLI, and then the police. And there was Major General Costa. So I grew up with my dad when we went to boarding school. I was on holiday. He was a Bisley shottist at Cleveland. And as a little lighty, I knew General Costa. I mean, he's this big guy. I'm this little pickaninny. But sadly, they reckon he was a good leader, Costa. There's been thoughts now, you know, Willem Rutter was SAS for 5 years, then he went to 3-2 Battalion and there became a legend. Willem says we should have concentrated on Renamo right from 1975, straight on, and left all the other border control Zambia to you guys and, you know, territorial units, and we should have only been pushing Renamo.
Absolutely. I think it was Mugabe or one of his senior guys that said if the external ops had started a year earlier, they would have lost the war. And I really believe that.
Well, Chimoya was targeted a year before it went in.
Jeez.
And political considerations, they said no, they wouldn't allow it. Only in November 77, aerial photography said, look, they estimate between 8,000 and 12,000 people in that camp.
Good Lord.
So that's when the go-ahead went.
Talking about old
but it'd been there a year before. And of course, 79, we had a big op which was cancelled. We were going to blow every major bridge in Mozambique, starting at Tet over the Zambezi, down to Tongara, and then the Buzi River and the Sabi. Now, the Sabi River was given to us, C Squadron, with the Rekis. So that's a massive suspension bridge over the Sabi River.
That's a big one.
That was cancelled in the 12th hour as well, because they reckon that would have thrown Mozambique back into the dark ages.
Well, tough on them.
That was the story we were told. What was it? That was, I'm sure it was early 79, but that was cancelled right in the 12 hours. We'd experimented with methods of breaching the minefield because we were hitting it from the southwestern side, excuse me, and there was minefield. So we were experimenting with ways of how to breach the minefield, throwing long pieces of cortex and blowing pathways through it. So and then the Rekis were going to take the south eastern side where the camp was. I mean, I've been through it on holiday many times now, and you can see that's where the camp was, but it's also close. But we were going to hit from the southwest, the C Squadron guys.
How come harbour facilities like cranes and electrical junctions and all that were never blown up in Byron and Lorenzo Marx is Maputo? Was that, surely you want to cripple their ability to offload troops and material?
You see, that stuff's way above me. That's all planning and it's political. In fact, in Peter Bauer's book, after Op Tepid, they were going to bomb north of the Limpopo River. I think it's not Kwisiko, just north of Shai. There was a holiday resort there and a hotel. They were going to bomb all the frontline leaders were there. They were going to bomb that place. That's in Peter Bauer's book. But that was also called off. That would have been beyond the pale for overseas. So there were all these plans. Even when Wilson took his guys into Maputo, right into the diplomatic area up to his house, and he wasn't there. There was plans apparently mooted to go back to lay explosives in the ceiling of the house.
Wow!
But apparently they reckon no, he was warned. He was told. So one will never know these things. It's all subjective now, but we don't really know.
No, a lot of skullduggery going around.
Yeah.
Like that guy bumped off at the talks in London.
Someone sent me something on it yesterday, and it just reminded me because I knew about it. Apparently, someone answered and said Ian Smith flew his body back.
He did,
and then flew back to carry on the talks.
Yeah, and people
because they knew that his points were that they couldn't get around those points.
Yeah, it would have put a big dwang in the British plans. They just wanted to get rid of Rhodesia, and this was too much for them.
That's a disgusting thing, and sad to say for the British people, but the wheel has turned. What you guys are going through now with Starmer and
absolutely.
I mean, you want to talk socialist? That's not socialist. That's East German Stasi.
This is pure communism.
Starmer is.
Yeah, we're living under a communist leader. Yeah. Well,
No,
he was the head of a communist party until, not party, but organization until 2007. He's an out
wow.
and out commie. He's fought for known terrorists to come into the country for human rights. He
Yeah.
was,
And now they want to pass this Islamophobia bill now.
oh well, you know, that is done to just shut everybody up. If you read the 8 or 10 steps to Marxism, we're going through the steps.
Oh yes, yeah.
Your fuel,
Nikita Khrushchev,
everything.
Nikita Khrushchev warned the West 1959, I think it was.
Yeah.
He says we won't have to fire a shot, and he goes through all the steps, and we've gone through most of those steps.
Yeah, the steps are there, and thank God Trump's turning the steps back in America.
Oh yeah.
I hope he does.
Oh no, that's unreal. Yet your lot, that Reeves and that other, Rachel from accounts.
Oh man, I'll tell you, I feel absolutely sick because, you know, my blood's at war with the Poms because I'm half Afrikaans and half a third English, and Norwegian and all that lot. But I still have a lot of respect for what the Brits did do in their history here, and it absolutely sickens me the way this country's been treated, and the old people here. If they can,
that winter fuel allowance is unbelievable.
You know, they awarded themselves.
Yet they send billions to Ukraine.
And they awarded themselves, and I'll hope somebody fact checks me on this. They awarded themselves a £500 heating allowance for themselves.
Wow.
But took it away from us, you know. And here
whereabout are you?
I'm in Bambazonki, Wiltshire, Salisbury, Wiltshire. How's that?
Salisbury, Wiltshire. Okay.
How's that for irony?
Yeah. Oh, okay. That's Wiltshire.
Yeah.
And then just south of you is that Hampshire.
Correct. Yes. Yeah. Hampshire sort of wraps around us a bit.
Okay. Yeah. It's quite a nice area there. But I would love the southwest, Devon, Cornwall.
Oh yeah. If I was younger, I'd probably move down there. But
yeah, that's where John Padbury. I think John's in Devon, but I'll give him a shout.
Please do.
Because he wants me to finish my Humumba account, Humumba farm on. I must get a hold of Andy Sonis and ask him, come on, Andy, can you add anything to this? Yeah. Sadly, most of the guys' memories, they're just becoming old crocs now.
Well, even with me, I'm getting mental exhaustion from these interviews. You might notice that sometimes I don't know what the hell I'm saying or thinking because my mind's so buggered as we get older. So I understand. But what I'd really like out of you, please, if you're willing, is to give us as many photographs as you can that tie in with your talk and the names to any people that I could possibly interview. I'd really appreciate that.
Okay. Look, those ones, as you can see, the quality of those things is shocking. They are really...
It doesn't matter. They're historical documents. It's fantastic. Yeah.
I mean, they're the one I'm standing in my greens. I'm a corporal. The sergeant to me is John Haynes.
Right.
Now John went through the old recce, 4 recce. I think he ended up as a W01 in 4 recce. Johnny Haynes. So I was a corporal then. And then the other one standing on top by that beacon, that's on top of Silozwani at the end of the speed march on selection when I was a junior instructor. That guy standing next to me is Stan Hornby. He was a WO warrant officer. Stan Hornby. He came from Andola. When I'm sitting on that double-barreled 37 mil, all these years I've wondered, is it me or was it Bruce Taverner, who was a corporal? But it looks like me. But the quality of the photograph is just not good.
Yeah.
But the other one standing on top of the mountain range, and I've got a little gook hat on with an AK, and I'm in my shorts and t-shirt. That was that very last op on Gorongosa with Renamo.
Yeah. Okay.
And we were actually gifted. I haven't told you the full story of what happened there. It's quite a scary story that we went through on that op. But I think I've waffled enough today.
Well, if you can recount that quickly, that would be great.
Okay. We were there. I was looking for my little piece. I found my notebook, my original notebook with the numbers, with the names of all the guys who were on our call sign. Lieutenant Richard, me, Sergeant, and then the few corporals. It's probably about 8 or 9 guys. But I thought it was with my photographs. But anyway, we deployed there and we training them. But the language thing was hard. So they had these little commandantes, the young officers, who could interpret. And Alphonse Lacama made out that he couldn't speak English, okay? And we had to sleep around him. So we had these bashes. This is up in almost rainforest.
Yeah.
So they would make us these beds this high above the ground and just cover it with love grass and everything. But we had to sleep in a circle around his tent. And he slept with boys, with young boys would come out his tent every morning.
Oh, my word.
And of course, us young Rhodesians are very homophobic. And we didn't like that. And Paddy Giblin, he was an Irishman. And he stayed in the recce's and he was quite feared when he was instructing. So that's all Paddy. But I was good mates with old Paddy. The South African Air Force dropped a resupply one night. We'd been there for, I don't know how long, maybe a week or two. And the C-130 was approaching. Now, the Gorongosa, I think, was about 20 by 40 square kilometers, the Gorongosa Mountains. And now, Rich is on the A-76 trying to talk in the, I think we had big fires in the pasture, like we had alpine pastures with waterfalls and ferns and everything. But we just on the edge of the jungle. And he's trying to talk these guys in, go left, go right. And this arrogant Afrikaner says, don't tell me when to drop. So he dropped and he missed the whole mountain range.
Oh.
He dropped far too early and all the food and big sacks of garlic and everything, because we just couldn't take one more day of eating sadza. So when that came with the garlic, we just sadza with garlic. We all had the runs. It was terrible. It's like Ron Cook when he was fighting for the Mujahideen in the 80s. He did it for Allah and the runs. That's all he got. He didn't get paid. He got the runs. But anyway, it took us about another full day or 2 days to carry everything up the mountain. And one of the little boys coming out of Alfonso's tent, he walked up the whole mountain range with one case of 7.62 AK ammo. They had those beautiful seal tins. You got a case that's got 2 seal tins. And he's got this thing perched on his head and he's mincing up the mountain range. And Paddy looked him, swore at him and punched him full in the face. Now, that was a Sunday morning. That night, they had almost like a seance, the witch doctors there, and they all doped up. And Alphonse was so doped, he was firing his RPK on full automatic, swinging it around his head with one hand.
No.
And they kept on gesturing at us with the AKs because of this insult, because Paddy had punched that guy.
Yeah.
And we couldn't understand what they were saying, but the mood was serious. We thought we were going to get taken out now. So Stannard said to everyone, pack up. Wow. And the only way to get out of the camp, we're right on the edge of the alpine pastures. We had to walk through the seance that they had. And as we were walking through, we packed, we did our packs, and we all got the safeties off, and we were about to say, shit, if I die, well, I'm going to take them plenty with me. And we watched through, and they were doing this with the AKs. They were gesturing. Yes, I know it was dodgy. And Stannard took us to the edge of the escarpment, and we found a nice position to hole up, a defensive position on the edge, so they couldn't get us from behind. And we set up firing positions and everything, and then we waited for them to come and attack us. But that never happened. Next day, he's sober and he's not stoned anymore, and he sent his emissaries to say, we're sorry.
Oh, good.
And then we went back. But that was a very, very dodgy. And it just couldn't have gone because they were stoned and they were drunk. And no, that was nasty. But as quite ironically, he had these big South African Army tents, those big brown tents, those big square tents, like 16 by 16 foot, I think it is. He took myself and Rich Stannard, the lieutenant, the sergeant, into this tent, and he gave us a set of tusks. Now, I walked into that tent, and Tony, to the roof, it was stacked with ivory. The whole tent. The whole tent was just packed. You couldn't even walk. There was a little passageway, and he gifted us a set of tusks. So when they were sent down the mountain to go and attack Frelimo, they were going poaching. And I still believe that was at the directive of South Africa, because they did it in Angola with Savimbi. They did the same thing. Colonel Jan Brotenbach even wrote a book about that.
And I believe Angola was just swarming with game.
It was slaughtered. I mean, where Jumba was in the east of Angola. Beautiful. But that was all national parks under the Portuguese. So, but I personally flew down 1980. I did about 3 or 4 flights down south. I was told, right, I was given the keys to the secret store that we had at Cabrit by Sergeant Major Pete Allen. He said, Riddell, go and draw out the bulletproof jackets. Now, Captain Bob McKenzie was good friends with Colonel Bob Brown, the editor, the owner of Soldier Fortune magazine. And by the time we left, most of my kit was U.S. Army Vietnam era. mixed with Australian and all sorts. When the monitoring force left, we got nice kit out of them as well. So Sergeant Major Helen told me, Riddell, he gave me the keys, and I went and I drew all the bulletproof jackets that Bob Brown had gifted to the SAS. Now, the special store was the special store because it contained weapons that the police didn't have ballistics on. Because remember, old leader when it came to ballistics. I mean, you see all these CSI programs now. They're all yawn. We were doing it in the 70s. That's how the police could track gangs just from the cartridge cases. They could track the movement of gangs.
Amazing, man.
No, they were phenomenal. But our special store, we had silenced Beretta 22 pistols for assassinations.
Wow.
We had all sorts. We had Dragunov sniper rifles. We had RPDs. We had all sorts of weapons that special branch had no ballistics. And I was told to draw all the bulletproof jackets, which I did. And we got them together, and along with our Hispano Suiza 20 millimeters, got them in a truck. I drove them all out to Filed Airport, that so-called secret airfield just the other side of Hartley.
Yeah.
And I've actually got a picture of a C-160, the Transal, and we loaded. I'll have to look at the picture. It's either a 60 or a C-130, and we flew 20 mils down. I threw all the second chance hardcore stuff down, and then. So they were sent, but they were Bob Mackenzie's because they were given to him.
Right.
So those the 20 mils, I signed those out. We flew those down, and I made a few trips. The one trip I flew a Pookie. I was ordered to go to Trevor Davies Engineering there by Coca-Cola. I can't remember the name of that industrial area just south of the Cow's Guts there.
Yeah.
The big Coke factory. So Trevor Davies Engineering was there. He was a guy that made the Pookies. And I flew it down to Waterkloof Air Base in Pretoria. And from there, I escorted to Littleton Engineering in Pretoria for the South Africans. You know, they never adopted them.
Wow.
You can go to the War Museum in Joburg. What's that park called? But there's old ones with SAP, with the police number plates on them, but the tires are gone and they're just in bad state. The South Africans never adopted the Pookie, and I told you I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for Pookie.
Yeah, amazing kit.
So that was one of my trips. And then another trip, Graham Wilson organized a whole bunch of Datsun cars for Special Branch in the lead up to the elections.
Good Lord.
So Major Paul Fisher and myself, it took a whole bunch of lower ranks. And we flew down in a Dakota, and we went to Nissan in Pretoria North, and we got all these Datsun 120Ys, and because we were the senior rankers, we got the Datsun Laurels.
Oh, lovely.
The full auto, beautiful car.
Jeez, lovely, man.
Paul drove the one Laurel, I drove the other one, then we drove them back to Salisbury. They were a gift to Special Branch, which Graham organized. So that was, I did about 3 or 4 trips down in 1980. And then I eventually drove down with Keith Clutie in June 1980. We drove straight to Pretoria, signed on, and then drove down to Rekkie, to Durban, to the Bluff. I've actually missed out a little bits because for a while I couldn't find my second sheet. So there's also little bits and pieces, but I think I've told you most of it.
Yeah, I think it's an awesome overview of what you did. I really can't thank you enough. And
my brother's been moaning at me for years to write a book, but I've got these memories, but in between them, there's big gaps.
It doesn't matter.
I can just remember weeks and weeks of utter boredom, the hurry up and wait, utter boredom, and just mine laying. You've got all the weight out of your packs. I mean, here's the weights of a TM57 is 18 pounds.
Yeah.
And we carry 2-3 of those.
Yeah.
Apart from all your kit. And the TR48, complete, 11 kgs, 24 pounds. It takes the whole top of your pack. Then you put your water. Then you put your food and your ammo. Oh,
I would encourage you to write a book if you've got the time, and I can help.
I can. I'm virtually retired now. I think I should do, because I've written my first stop, that Snatch. I did it. It's on the one SAS site.
Yeah.
For Dave O'Sullivan asked me, and I've done Yamumba Farm now, because the guys' memories they're shocking. I even asked Howard Muggeridge, who holds the speed march record on my selection course. He told me, and that's actually, he says only 25 Ks, and we had like 40 pounds or whatever, and in your pack. But Howard's memory is also shocking. He can't remember half the stuff. I've had to tell him, no, that op where they were crouched in the foxholes, no, that was Makushi, not DK1. He doesn't even know.
Well, you've got a darn good memory, I must admit.
Yeah, there's not many guys who've actually got the memory that I've got.
Yeah, no, you're a valuable source of
of.
information.
Okay, Tony, I'm going to go and feed my Nyala now. It's getting too last light, and my two do only come out of the bush when it's dark because the biting fly is driving them crazy.
Okay. Thank you very much again, Rob, and all the best to you. Eh?